Okay, so now we want to talk about what it takes for something to be self-evident. Um, so remember, Sosa is split into two cases. We have the self-evident and the non-self-evident, and he's going to be a little while in this paper discussing the self-evident first before he moves on to talking about the non-self-evident. And all I want to talk to you about for the moment is just the self-evident stuff. And so recall that being evident is what Sosa is going to use to replace justification in justified true belief, because we saw that justification doesn't quite do the job we want it to. So he's replacing it with things being evident, and the boring or bottom level sort of evident is self-evident. Now, here's the definition Sosa gives of self-evident. He says, from the fact that S correctly believes that P, we may infer that it is evident to S that P. So all it takes in the case of self-evidence, the only thing needed in order for it to become evident is that you correctly believe. Now, not all things that are evident to us are self-evident, but the ones that are self-evident, this is what characterizes it. This is what it takes to be self-evident. It's self-evident when just from the fact that we correctly believe a certain thing, we can infer that it is evident to us. Now, it's important to Sosa, and it's going to be important to us, that we don't throw this out. We may infer. It's not that correct belief is all there is to it being self-evident. It's that correct belief is all you need to infer that it is evident. Now, you do infer it somehow, right? And Sosa goes on to talk about this. He says this inference here cannot be logically valid. There's a little discussion about why, but the important part is that logic alone just isn't going to do that job for us. So you have to have something extra logical. And you might wonder, well, I mean, what could it be? What sorts of inferences take just the fact that we correctly believe something and immediately make it evident to us? And what kind of propositions could it be that just from the fact that I believe them, I can see that they're evident? And Sosa gives us some examples after he has a little discussion of why we should expect there to be such things. He gives us some decent examples. And so let's have a look at one. This mark is no longer helpful, so get rid of it. Here we go. Here's one of the examples. He says, if S correctly believes that it occurs to him that P, then it is evident to S that it occurs to him that P. So take any thought that occurs to you. Okay, so just like fix on one. So like right now, I could say like it occurs to me that there's a large number of cars on the street. Okay, it has occurred to me that there are a large number of cars on the street. Great. Having pointed out that it has occurred to me, I now believe that it has occurred to me. And it in fact occurs to me that there are a lot of cars on the street. So I don't just believe that it has occurred to me, I correctly believe that it has occurred to me. That is, I not only believe it has occurred to me that P, I correctly believe it has occurred to me that P. And I don't need anything else but that to infer that, yep, I see that it has occurred to me. I'm not saying that that's enough information for me to conclude there are a lot of cars on the street. I'm saying it's enough information for me to conclude that it has occurred to me that there are cars on the street. Basically, what Sosa is talking about here is you have access to your thoughts. You have really good access to your thoughts. And so you can say, I thought X. And whenever you say that, and you're correct, like you can also claim to have had thoughts that you haven't had. But if you're telling the truth about what you've thought, then you in fact have great access to it. It is evident to you that you've had those thoughts. This is the sort of self-evidence that Sosa has in mind. And you might wonder, how much else is there that can be self-evident like that? And Sosa gives another example that's slightly different. So here's a different example that's not just me having access to my thoughts, although my thoughts do play a role in it. If S believes that either P or it is false that P, then it is evident to S that either P or it is false that P. So I choose some proposition, like say the proposition that it is raining outside. And I think to myself, well, either it's raining outside or it isn't. And I come to believe that just by reflecting on it. And now it's evident to me that either it's raining outside or it isn't. Now, before I thought about it, it wasn't evident to me. I did need to bring it to my mind for it to become evident. But once I did, it was evident to me. It's self-evident. I don't need to go do more investigating to figure it out in either cases. And so this is a different class of things that can be self-evident to us. It's not our own thoughts. It's not the things that are accessible via introspection. It's something like logical truths. Now, Sosa doesn't think that these are exhaustive of what can be self-evident to us. He just thinks they're good examples of things that are self-evident. And in each case, we see there's an inference, right? We sort of recognize something, and we infer from the basis of having recognized it and its truth that, in fact, we've recognized it, or something like that. The inferences aren't complex, but they also aren't logical. And they do, in fact, take us, they're slightly expansive. So they do let us see new things. Okay, so that's the first sort of evidentness that Sosa talks about. We move on to the second bit of evidentness in the next video, and we start talking about that down here. Remember, the second type is when it's evident but not self-evident. Okay, thanks.